Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And it's the return of Slim Pickens 98. I don't know if you remember him. We have featured him once before. I believe it was in a Novosibirsk, or however the hell you pronounce the name of that Russian cruiser. Well, he's back in this Tier 7 domination battle here on the New Dawn map. And this time, instead of being in a borderline overpowered Tier 11 Soviet supership, he's in a borderline overpowered Tier 7 British, not quite supership, but actually sort of kind of supership, because it is none other than the amazing HMS Fiji. Like most of the ships in the game in the mid-tiers, HMS Fiji actually existed. This is a Crown Colony class light cruiser. Functionally, it's more or less identical to the town class cruisers like the Belfast. Basically, the Crown Colony class, or the Fiji class as they were known, were designed to be more efficient and compact to build than the very successful town class cruisers that preceded them. 11 were built, 2 were lost in service. Unfortunately, that included HMS Fiji herself, who was lost while defending the evacuation of British troops from the island of Crete in 1941, along with the town class cruiser HMS Southampton. The other Crown Colony class cruiser to be lost to enemy action during World War II was HMS Trinidad, who was lost under similar circumstances to the Fiji, with both ships being scuttled after suffering fatal damage defending against enemy air attacks. In the case of HMS Trinidad, this occurred during the escort of an Arctic convoy in 1942. So let's talk about the pros and cons of HMS Fiji. We'll start with the downsides, because they're relatively easy to summarise and there are not many of them. The ship has a very long, exposed citadel. So you really don't want to be exposing the broadside of this thing to, well, anything if you can help it. Certainly not battleships, but not even other light cruisers, depending on the range. Along with all of the other British light cruisers, she has criminally thin bow and stern plating. It's only 16mm thick. Now the good news is, you're not going to be overmatched from the front or rear by a heavy cruiser. But every single battleship that you're going to fight will be capable of citadeling you from the front, because it only requires a gun with a caliber of 229mm to overmatch your bow and stern armour and smash through your citadel as if that bow and stern armour wasn't even there. Actually, come to think of it, that does include some heavy cruisers, although thankfully most of them are not going to be within your matchmaking spread. But watch out if you're getting shot at by a Scharnhorst or a Graf Spee, because if so, and you don't angle well, and you take those shots on the chin rather than the belt, you can end up looking like an Omaha in a Tier 7 battle. I'm convinced that was intentional suicide by the Omaha, by the way. The Omaha has always been the poster child for Tier 5 and in some cases Tier 6 light cruisers that pretty much explode as soon as anybody so much as looks at them with armor piercing loaded. And for an Omaha to be leading the charge in a Tier 7 battle, and therefore obviously being the first one to die, just smacks to me of an Omaha player who's thinking to himself, screw this matchmaker and everything that it stands for, I want to get into the next battle as quickly as possible. Well, congratulations. He got his wish. Now, yes, we did notice the torpedoes that just went by, which almost certainly means there is an enemy destroyer nearby, but we can see the enemy Leander, we cannot see the enemy destroyer. So the enemy Leander is the one that we're shooting at, even though Slim is also taking care between salvos to have a quick look around to see if anybody can spot any further incoming torpedoes. Also keep an eye on that Piotr Veliki. The enemy Leander, however, appears to have zigged when he should have zagged and ended up running himself aground on the island, making himself a relatively easy target. The Leander, by the way, the Fiji's predecessor, is even more lightly armoured. The Leander's bow and stern plating is only 13mm thick, which means that even angled, the Leander can get citadel from the front by a heavy cruiser. Angled, however, it can reliably expect to be able to bounce light cruiser armour piercing. As the Leander dies, remember, cool ships don't look at explosions. As the Leander dies to the Fiji's light cruiser armour piercing. However, the British light cruisers, see, under normal circumstances, if you're firing at an angled target, you'll use high explosive ammunition to avoid the ricochets from armour piercing. But British light cruisers don't get high explosive ammunition. This, of course, is another downside of British light cruisers like the Fiji. But now that we've exhausted the downsides of this ship, it's time to talk about the good things. And the good thing about only having armour-piercing ammunition with these 6-inch guns is that the British light cruisers, in order to compensate for not getting access to high explosive ammunition, they get improved ricochet angles on their armour-piercing shells. Now, I've mentioned this in the past. I mention it quite often, basically every time we're showing a replay with a British light cruiser. But it occurred to me that I have never actually explained exactly what that means. So here we go, quick explanation. Unless you're shooting at a target with armour-piercing shells of sufficiently high calibre to overmatch the armour that they're impacting, so for example, 229mm guns or bigger, hitting the 16mm bow and stern plating of HMS Fiji here, in which case no ricochet check is calculated, you just overmatch the armour and go through it as if it wasn't even there. That's basically the overmatch mechanic. But where there is no overmatch mechanic, the game looks at the angle that the shell impacts the armour and then makes a calculation to decide whether or not the shot just bounces off harmlessly. If the ship that you're shooting at is between an angle of 90 degrees, or in other words, nose in straight towards you, and 60 degrees, and you're not firing an armour-piercing shell of sufficient calibre to overmatch, then you're guaranteed a ricochet. You're guaranteed a bounce. If the angle is between 60 degrees and 45 degrees, you have a chance to bounce. The game doesn't specify exactly what that chance is. It's one of those little secrets that they don't share with us, and it probably varies from ship to ship. But you might ricochet, or you might penetrate. Now, if the angle is 45 degrees or less, with 0 degrees being flat broadside, no ricochet will occur. Quick note, bear in mind that even if a target is giving you a flat broadside to shoot at, if it's sufficiently long range and your shells are basically coming in from almost directly above, i.e. a vertical angle of almost 90 degrees, a ricochet can also occur if it hits the side armour. However, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. The thing that you need to remember about the British light cruisers is that they don't have the same ricochet angles with their armour-piercing shells. Whereas everybody else gets a chance to ricochet from 45 degrees and a guaranteed ricochet from 60 degrees and up, the Fiji doesn't even start calculating the chance for a ricochet until 60 degrees, the point at which everybody else is guaranteed one. And the Fiji doesn't get guaranteed ricochets until that angle reaches 75 degrees, with, remember, everybody else getting guaranteed ricochets at 60 degrees or above. It's actually even better for the British Tier 2, 3, 4 and 5 light cruisers. They don't start getting a ricochet chance until 65 degrees, and they don't get guaranteed ricochets until 80 degrees. I know, it's ridiculous. As well as all of this, the Fiji is armed with 12 very accurate, rapid-firing main 6-inch guns, which despite the lack of high explosive ammunition, can be absolutely lethal to enemy destroyers. Like that. And a move that's almost unheard of for Tier 7 cruisers, she actually comes with a repair party consumable. Now, it's not the super repair that you get on HMS Edinburgh at Tier 8, but just the fact that this is a Tier 7 cruiser that actually comes with a repair consumable is pretty remarkable. She also gets a very, very good long-duration smoke generator. Well, I say long duration. I mean, we're not talking anything American here, but it's still pretty good. Very good base concealment. Oh, destroyer spotted, and it's gone. I mean, he's got the hydro running. It only has 30 seconds left, but obvious torpedoes are kind of obvious. Yep, there they are. Oh, yeah. He has the hydro consumable, so there's another good thing. He's going to want to... Yes, he is. He is ceasing fire here. That's some semi-armour piercing, high explosive from the destroyer, large caliber armour piercing from the battleship. He's managed to go undetected again. A very wise choice to cease fire there. 51mm of deck armour, by the way. Despite the 16mm bow and stern plating, the deck is actually fairly well armoured. In fact, it's more well armoured than a lot of Tier 10 battleships. Oh, and excellent handling characteristics. Not just a good top speed of 32.5 knots without a speed flag, but a very, very small turning circle, despite the slightly sluggish rudder shift. Mostly due to the off-the-charts acceleration characteristics of the British light cruisers. These things can be pulling a hard rudder turn and still accelerate. It is that good. What is not good is the rate at which his team are losing ships. There's only 4 of them left alive, including Slim himself. What the hell is going on here? Also, they only have the 1 cap circle. Well, he's spotted, so this isn't going to be coming as much of a surprise to anybody, but it's time to turn on the Doom music and activate Beast Mode. We're going to start with the Hughes. Now, there were 2 destroyers here, and they did see him coming, and he's taken out the Hughes, but there's also a Nicholas, and, well, inevitable torpedoes are kind of inevitable. But despite the multiple walls of skill launched at him, he manages to pick the course that involves only running into one of them, while at the same time taking out both destroyers for a double strike, to go with the Confederate award that he earned by shooting at the Hughes, one of those new American heavy destroyers. He did go undetected after nailing the 2 destroyers, but then immediately got detected again afterwards. I believe it was probably somebody spotting aircraft, because I'm not seeing anybody with a line of sight to him. So a very, very wise smokescreen. Torpedoes launched. I don't know if they're going to be fast enough to catch the Colorado. I mean, the Colorado's not a fast battleship by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pretty sure those are going to miss. Still, as long as we're here, and still kind of losing pretty badly, and with the Scharnhorst 43 going down, now losing even more badly than we were before, it would be wise to try to inflict some more damage on the enemy team. And this is, of course, a calculated risk, because the Colorado can, and in fact is, also shooting at your tracer. But remember the extreme acceleration characteristics of this thing? Basically from reverse to a speed of 30 knots in about 4 seconds. It really is just amazingly good. Less than 30 seconds and he can use another heal. But if he waits that 30 seconds, he's going to lose the opportunity to nail another enemy cruiser and earn the Kraken Unleashed. Now, risky, but you're losing. So, yep, it got him spotted by the Colorado. Yep, it got him shot at by the Colorado. But he's on the losing team, pretty substantially. And when you're on the losing team, you lose the luxury of playing it safe. On the bright side, he not only managed to get the kill on the De Grasse, he's also taken his second cap circle. The heal is now active. And while under normal circumstances, a light cruiser player being pursued by a battleship armed with 16-inch guns would probably prefer to err on the side of caution, duck in behind an island, go undetected and wait your moment. But he's on the losing team. He doesn't have the luxury of playing it safe. So what he needs to do now, and it's going to be substantially easier said than done, is kill the Zara and then use that island to shelter him from the Colorado and the Andrea Doria. And if I'm being completely honest, the Zara was not making it difficult. All the Citadels. They may just be 6-inch guns compared to the Zara's 8-inch guns, but you score enough Citadels with them and it's going to leave a mark that isn't going to polish out easily. Oh, hello, the Colorado appears to have overextended a little. There's a potential for another sneaky kill here. No, the Hughes got him. Okay, well done to the Hughes. Good job. American heavy destroyers with larger caliber guns, not just 5-inch guns. Not quite 6-inch guns, but they hit harder, as the Colorado found out the hard way. And suddenly, they're not losing anymore. They're ahead on points, they're ahead on caps, and there's only 1 kill in it, but they're ahead on kills. Beautifully timed shot there against the Andrea Doria. And can I give a shout out, by the way, to the other surviving cruiser on Slim's team? For it is but a Tier 5 light cruiser, the German Königsberg. And he's in a Tier 7 battle. And he didn't do an Omaha. And he's still alive. I mean, he hasn't killed anything, but the fact that he's still alive is impressive. Not quite as impressive as 6 kills and 130,000 damage, as well as 2 flag captures, but, I mean, you know, you have to dial back your expectations when you're in a ship tier and class that's, well, basically known for being made of fuel and citadels and exploding as soon as anybody so much as looks at it with armor-piercing loaded. So, credit where credit's due. Good job, Königsberg. Hello, what was that? How was... Oh, that was bad, and also potentially fatal. Instant smoke. He got spotted there, and it was not by the battleship. There was at least 1 island blocking line of sight. So you know what that means, don't you? There's an enemy submarine nearby. Well, he's popped the instant island cutter, and is actually also using the island cutter. You notice he keeps getting target lock with the torpedoes. I realise most of you will know exactly why he's doing this, but there are a lot of people watching these videos who don't actually play World of Warships. He's using the torpedo aim indicator after getting a torpedo lock on a target to estimate the speed and direction. Although the direction's obvious because he can see him, but he's using it to estimate how much lead he needs to give to the target that he's shooting at. It's particularly useful. Yes, Akazuki, I'm gonna come to that part. It's particularly useful if you can't actually see the target because somebody else is spotting it and it's on the other side of an island. Yeah, I told the Makazuki. Yes, you can have credit for giving them the tip. Okay, it's worth a can of tuna. Fine, whatever. Oh, look at that. Kill number 7. And that just leaves the U-69. And given that somebody's flipping that central cap, I think it's pretty obvious where he is. Now remember, the submarine has to be on the surface in order to take a cap circle. And he has just taken the cap circle. And you'll note, Slim just went undetected, which means he's almost certainly submerged and is probably trying to motor the hell out of here in, well, I have to say, a fairly forlorn attempt to try to sneak another cap circle, because with the time remaining and the number of points that Slim's team have, that submarine needs to get some kills, and it's going to be a fairly tall order, but, I mean, Slim doesn't have a huge amount of health, and the Hughes has even less, so it's not completely out of the question. Slim's just popped his hydro. The thing is, despite the fact that this is basically exactly what hydroacoustic search was designed for, hydro doesn't detect submarines the same way it detects, in-game at least, torpedoes and other ships. Hydroacoustic search will only detect an enemy submarine at maximum depth at a range of 2 kilometers, which, by the way, might sound familiar, because it's the minimum assured detection range anyway. However, to be completely fair, and the reason why I still don't think submarines were as bad an addition to the game as the aircraft carrier rework, notice that Slim is not spotted, even though, because he's within 2 kilometers with hydro running, he can see exactly where the submarine is, and the submarine does not spot him until it comes up from maximum depth, because submarines do not get proximity spotting when they're at maximum depth, regardless of how close an enemy is. And of course the submarine had to come up because it's trying to escape through shallow water. It runs into the island and, well, yeah, fairly inevitable. And kill number 8 for Slim Pickens 98 in the all-round fantastic Tier 7 Crown Colony class light cruiser HMS Fiji. And he only played this battle because he needed another 400 XP for naval battles. So the extra 2,900 that he earned in this match, just call it a nice bonus. Again, congratulations there to the Königsberg. Not only survived, but also managed to get more than 1,000 base XP. Great job. And of course, hats off to Slim Pickens 98. 3,300 base experience, 8 kills in a battle that was all but lost, until he put his man pants on and turned on the doom music. Slim, great to see you again, extremely well done, and I sincerely hope that this is going to be a sign of further great things to come in the future. Everybody else, hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.